What's going on? Move the Mouse here, back in City Skylines, the town of Santa Rico, with our Let's Play Season 2 episode number 17. I think I got it right this time. Like I said, I lose track. So in the previous episode, I had started to address some little traffic problems that we were having here or there. And I shouldn't say little, some of them were pretty major. But I had to put a ton of time into redesigning little parts of the city, and I'm nowhere near finished. But I've come up with some ways to address some of the major problem intersections, and I've at least started to repair kind of some of the problems in the big downtown area. We saw in the last episode sort of what happened down here by adding some additional slip lanes, and things are moving along pretty well. Now the area over here has expanded quite a bit, so we're filling up a bit more towards the highway, but we're still trying to keep that low density feel. Over here, Loose Town, I've switched it over to all green self-sufficient buildings. I had to shimmy some stuff around, but don't worry, Adia, you still have the School of Creative Arts in your district. I've made this neighborhood much more loose, and as we slowly get bits and pieces of residential demand, houses are starting to move in up here in these winding streets up towards the highway. But like I said, we've started to fill out over here quite a bit. This has grown by leaps and bounds, and we're meeting most of our commercial and office demand over here, and then slapping in pockets of residential so that people don't have to go too far to get to work. But I want to talk about what happened with some of the highway interchanges first. And one of my big problem areas is still over here, but I've started to make some changes and repair some things. But let me show you kind of coming into the main city from this massive roundabout, which does not have traffic problems for the most part. Traffic problems don't really happen until you get here into the center, but this is getting better. And how I did that was I split these roads off into 6-lane one-way roads and then made it so that there's very minimal intersections with them. So this is almost acting like a giant roundabout for this half of the city. Traffic can only turn when it's coming onto these side streets one direction. So basically we've just really reduced kind of traffic flow problems in here. Now, I would much rather have done this with, say, a 4-lane road, or 2-lane road maybe could support it, but probably not. There's just too much traffic. They did away with the 4-lane one-way roads quite a few updates ago. So if you're on PC, you can download some different mods for some options, but if you want anything bigger than a 2-lane one-way road, you have to jump up to highway or 6-lane roads. So we've done that here. Not a lot of traffic takes the left-hand lanes, but you'll notice that, again, because this kind of acts as a roundabout, if you want to turn back in, technically the 4 lanes on the left can be used as a turnaround lane, and some of the cars are doing that right now. So I did that here. We did that over here as well, and I'll show you how that fits into the highway. But I also did it here in the massive skyscrapers IT cluster area leading up to Central Park. And you can see, let me throw it on 3x speed, because traffic looks like it's moving very slow at 1x speed. I tend to play always on 3x speed. Problems compound a little faster, but you also make some more money. You may notice in the slider here, we are up to $6.6 million, and we have a population of 130,000, and it's still slowly growing, which is good. Now, let's talk about over here. I'm going to pause it for this one, because I don't want too many things happening in the background while I'm not paying attention. So here I've done the same thing coming off the center rotary. You've got this 6-lane one-way road, sort of giant roundabout diamond, if you will. And the highway over here, we've done, I want to show you a T intersection. A basic T intersection that's built into the game. A little backed up there, but that's okay. We've basically done the same thing over here. So if you just look at this portion of it, it's a little lopsided, but it's basically a T intersection coming off the highway, but it dumps directly into a rotary. So you can get from the city to the rotary to go either direction on the highway, and from the highway to the rotary to get back into the city. And that's supporting a decent amount of traffic. It funnels people down the 6-lane avenue into this rotary, if you will. Again, I'll call it a rotary, but might be a roundabout where you're from. That's what we call them here in New England. So I've still got a couple problem intersections. Let me bring up the traffic views, but we're getting there. it was in the 60s, so you know, there's going to be heavy traffic spots, but it's not backed up, right? It's not causing a lot of congestion. One part that is this avenue right here just is constantly lined up with traffic. So I was thinking about adding an on-ramp direct to the highway, coming under, connecting them over here, so that anybody that's leaving this area that's trying to get to the highway, instead of clogging up this street to get onto the rotary to go that way, maybe they'll just get onto the highway to get in or out of the city, or further down the highway to get, you know, over here or over to our office park. So that's what I was thinking. Part of the problem, I definitely caused this problem myself, because I started to get away from the grid, and then I didn't give good ways to connect from, say, this neighborhood to over here. So as we start to get off that central grid, you have less and less roads intersecting correctly. Let me show you. I carried these roads all the way up to this avenue. So around Central Park, around the Stacks, Lynch Hills and Victoria Heights and Hickory Park, right? They come up to here. But where this starts to break off, see, there's no lane supporting on the outside. So all this traffic has to funnel up through here and up here if they want to go to the highway. I've done some little things to help improve little bits of traffic flow. So I had some busy intersections here. So I turned this into a one-way loop that kind of goes through Emerson Hills. So you can come down that way, you can come back up this way, and it keeps some of this traffic at least flowing in certain directions. Less stops at the intersections, which is good. This is still a problem intersection that I've got to figure out something to do with. And then this one over here is perpetually in the red, but it's not too bad. It's like, as you can see, it's just right there at the intersection. Got kind of a funny four-way thing happening there. And here, a lot of traffic. But this is kind of my next big project, is figuring out what to do over here. Now, over here on the highway, we've added a couple clover leaves in. This one to take people to the airport. This one as a direct exchange from the airport, but this one's getting backed up quite a bit. So this one is a little slow going, unfortunately. And this is one of my next projects, is this area that you can see on screen right here. Gonna come up with better ways to move and manage traffic. I dropped the cloverleaf in just to get people from the airport into the city. They can go right underneath, stay on this little piece of highway. And the way that these link up, they can turn around if they need to, though people shouldn't be pathing to turn around and use that as a roundabout. So that takes people into the city, and then this one takes them up into the office park. This one takes them down into the tourist area. So I wanted to pause the video right here and add a quick bit of commentary. So after I recorded this, I noticed something in the comments. So I try and check the YouTube comments as often as possible. If you ever post a link or a hashtag in a comment, it automatically goes into a pending approval queue, so it doesn't show up right away. In case you're ever wondering, that's the default. You can turn it off, but generally it's a good idea to leave that on because people put some strange things in there sometimes. So I saw that somebody had posted a change.org link, and when I went in there, I found it pretty funny. So I just wanted to show you this. It's called Buy the Train Tile, and the description is just buy the train tile. We all want the train tile. Train tile. Did I mention the train tile? And I love the comment down below. I've never felt so strongly about a subject such as this. So thank you for that. I got a really good laugh, and you'll be happy to know that that train tile has been purchased finally. So let's cut back to the video and see what's going on there. So still lots to do on the traffic front. Another thing that I need to do is upgrade this to a cargo hub. We didn't need the rails before, but we do now because... Why do we have a power problem over here? I'm so confused. Why would these buildings have a power problem? Is this nuclear power plant not enough to support this section? Why would that not be spreading power? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm super confused. So let's forget that for a minute and look at our industrial area. No, it's going to bother me. Why are those buildings not powered? Seriously, a nuclear power plant can't cover one industrial area and a prison? Super confused. If you know what's going on, let me know in the comments down. Oh, never mind. So a nuclear power plant would be enough, but half of a nuclear power plant may not be enough. I threw a nuclear power plant over here just so that I wouldn't have to run power, but then I had to run power up here. Let's just get it connected to the grid. Let's solve this problem temporarily. I'm gonna run it from over here. I'm just gonna run it along the road. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Although still, half a nuclear power plant. I shouldn't say half a nuclear power plant. I shouldn't say half because when you're at 50%, you're at like 50% budget is like 25% production or something like that. It's not actually cutting the power in half. It's kind of weird. Let's hit play. Let's get those icons to go away. That should fix our problem. Now you can see we do have some businesses that are complaining about not enough workers. A couple businesses are getting abandoned, but this is the first time we've had industry in the town since we demolished the old area over here, which has since become an office park. But I did sort of similar to my previous builds. I tried to keep this one a little bit more streamlined. It's not 100% filled out yet, so this is still relatively young in its life cycle. But let me show you kind of what I did over here. So I did have at one point a nuclear power plant, but we don't need that if we're connecting it into the grid. We'll be fine there. So let's talk about traffic flow here, because this is one way to keep things really easy, and I think this is functioning very well for what it is. So we'll break out our roads, and that way we can go underground. I'll show you what I did from the highway. So we've got a cloverleaf here. It connects this highway that was built into the map to, well, technically this one was also built into the map, but this is the one we've initially been building off of. So there's a cloverleaf there. It comes into, that's the wrong one, this one here. It comes into a set of tunnels, and this is where I had to get a little tricky. You'll notice if you zoom way in, you can see the height difference in the tunnels, because I've got subway crisscrossing with this on-ramp and this off-ramp. Let's look at the traffic flow. So we're coming in, we come up from the underground, and now we can go back to our regular view. And every road except for this one right here is flowing left to right. So let's hit play for a minute. You'll see the traffic flow. So if I'm coming off the highway, I can get right off the highway at the street that I want to go to. They're 2-lane roads. We don't have any intersections, or I shouldn't say we don't have intersections. Obviously there are intersections. There are no stoplights or stop signs. People just kind of cruise on through. So you go to the street that you want, you hit the business that you need, you swing by this one way on the end of the district and see our Statue of Industry. And then if you need to just leave, you can head out in the highway. Again, let me bring up the roads here. So we can go underground, follow the traffic, comes under here, and you'll notice again, I had to go 2 clicks down to go under the metro and highway on the incoming. And there's also an exit over here. So if you're not exiting the zone immediately, it's because you either need to deliver to another business within the zone, or you're coming into our cargo station to get stuff on the train, which is now connected to our outside line. I should say, if you noticed the map before, I flattened this out so that we could build a bit. So I carved into that mountain a bit. There's a little hill here that I didn't really want to cut all the way down because I can't edit the terrain, obviously off map. And I've been depositing the excess soil way over here behind this mountain. So this was much flatter over here before. I didn't want to kind of disrupt this feel. I didn't want it to look any different on this side. So that ridge is basically untouched, but the mound of this mountain kind of extends much further over here into the corner of the map. This is where I'm depositing all that extra soil, trying to make room for that. So we've got our industrial area working. Little problems here or there, but you can see the traffic flow is doing pretty good for all the trucks, and especially just for 2-lane roads. But this is similar to what I've done in previous builds. I love it. It's simple. It's just dead easy. I've seen much more complicated versions of this build. There's actually some remarkable builds on PC, but they go into like having 4 train stations, 2 for each direction, and it's a much larger industrial complex than what I've built here, but I thought this was okay to kind of tuck into the edge of the map for green cities. You know, we don't want too much polluting industry. Although, since we waited until we had the Eden project, you'll notice that there's 0 ground pollution still. So the pollution can't get out of the buildings or into the water. And that's without any extra policies turned on. So the buildings themselves are polluted, but it in no way impacts the terrain or the land value. So you could move in right here and the land is just as valuable as it is next to the waterfront or next to a park, thanks to the Eden project. So very cool development. I can kind of build this out some more. We could do some ore or forestry even over here. One thing that I did want to mention, somebody had pointed out in the comments, I hadn't talked about it yet, is when you go into trees, you used to have this. So you'd pick a tree and you'd plant them tree by tree. Now, just like the terrain brushes, you can increase the size and the strength so that when you click on it, you can plant a ton of trees. So we can create a little foresty area and make our own forest industry. Now, don't go too crazy with that on PC, because you'll eventually eat up your prop limit and burn a ton of CPU. I don't know how well consoles can handle it, but go easy on it. I don't want you to crash your game because I recommended making a gigantic rainforest with the brushes there. So there's that. I did want to talk to, because somebody had asked a question, and I figured hopefully they're watching this video. They've been watching the rest of the series. I wanted to show the terrain tools, talk about how I kind of cut into this terrain. So let's save it real quick, because we're going to mess it up. So you basically have a few different tools. Let's pause it. You have the change terrain height or shift terrain. This will level terrain. You have smoothing and you have slopes. Now, right now I have a ton of soil that I need to go deposit in that corner of the map. So let's use the shift terrain tool to kind of show that off. So again, I won't save this. If you hit the, now this is on consoles and it works pretty similar, except you're going to, I want to say left click, right click. Yes, left click, right click on PC. So if I hit the A button or the X button on PlayStation, that's going to raise the terrain wherever this is. And if I hit the X button or the square button on PlayStation, so X on Xbox, square on PlayStation, and Switch made a mess of the button, so I'm not even going to pretend to know. I have the Switch version and I hit the wrong buttons all the time because they're not in the same spot. That one will lower the terrain or raise the terrain. And how sharply it does it is dependent on the size and strength. So you have specific number values on PC. We basically have a few flavors. We have 3 brush sizes, right? So you can also hold the Y or triangle button to pull up a specific brush, but you can just hit left or right in the D-pad to change the size of it. And then the strength of it will impact, well, here, let's zoom way in. If we have the strength and the size all the way down, kind of creates a round mountain. If I turn the strength all the way up, it's going to raise it sharper and you get a little bit more of a jagged peak. You get much better controls on the PC when it comes to kind of how to shift the terrain around. But that is an option for kind of raising and lowering bits of the terrain. If I wanted to level it and say, let's create a nice flat spot up here for some houses, you pick a height, and I'm going to hit X to pick target position. I believe that is square on PlayStation. And basically, once you have that target position defined, that's where it's going to adjust the height. And again, you can change the size and strength of the brush. But if I go ahead and hit the A button or the X button, it's going to flatten out a nice little plateau there until I can't hold any more soil. Now, there is an unlimited soil. It's under mods on PC. It's in the map creation menu on consoles. In fact, I don't know if you can change it after the fact. I know you can change it when you're creating the map. I think that's when you have to do it. I could be mistaken though. So that'll let you create a nice plateau, even out little bits, if you wanted to, you know, make a new neighborhood over here in this hill, maybe you select a spot in the road and kind of carve a way out here. Now again, because I have already filled up my soil, if you don't have that unlimited soil on, what you could do is come over here, maybe mark this, and then raise all this lowered terrain, and you're slowly getting rid of the soil that you have saved up. Now this is not how I've been doing it. I've been trying to keep it more of a mountain because I don't want a giant plateau over here of dirt, but you could do that. Smoothing works the same way. So how much it will smooth, let's go over to a rougher spot for this one. So we've got some edges here, some sharp edges, right? So if we go low on the size, low on the strength, it'll just very softly kind of round stuff out. And if we raise the size and the strength, it just increases how much it's going to smooth it. It's basically just trying to even the slope. So you can see kind of the guidelines here, trying to make it one flat slope. Now I'm running into problems with not enough soil because it's trying to raise certain parts to meet the lower parts. And you may need some soil reserves to do that, but that can help you kind of smooth out rough edges. If you've got spots that you've built like over here, and your houses are kind of on hills. I think especially down here by the water, I had this problem. Yeah, so you run into this, you could kind of smooth this out, but you may need soil depending on which way it's trying to shift the terrain. But that can help kind of cut back on some of these rough edges. Just to show you, because we need soil, so we'll lower terrain here, which is going to get us reserve soil. We're not going to save this again, so I'm just getting some soil in reserve. And now I can go back over here into my soften terrain tool, and you won't see much of a difference because it kind of, it has to adhere some of this, like it can't raise the house up, it can't lower this one down. So there's only so much it can do with the terrain in some cases, but it can soften up some of the rough edges. Like right here, it's going to be able to do it a bit because there's a lot of this dead zone in between the houses. So it's going to make that slope a little bit smoother. And you can see it kind of starts to even things off. Over here, let me show you without the tool turned on, just so you can get a look at it, and then we can soften this up a bit. Just to smooth some of these edges if you want it to look a little less jagged. The last one that's kind of cool is, let's say we wanted to build, you know, build a big ramp or kind of really shape the terrain the way we wanted. So this is the slope terrain, sort of like we did with the, I think I'm gonna need a lot more reserve soil for this. Sort of like we did, we can do it in a slightly different way. So we can slope the terrain down if we wanted, or up. You're basically picking a point, and then wherever you adjust from there, it's gonna create an even slope to that spot. Now, if we were to do that over here, let's see, from here, let's say, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to create an even slope from there to there. So wherever we are, it's going to do that nice, smooth slope. If we wanted this to be, you know, a town, a hillside town, you know, you could even this all out and level that down. So those are the terrain editing tools. I hope that helped shed some light, because I did get a couple questions on that, and one very recently on kind of how those things work. You need to have soil reserves. You need to have some room to work. Like, again, you can't change the terrain too much. Like, see, if I keep that slope, it's gonna adjust it all the way towards that slope. Now, if I go back to the lower terrain, yes, I can lower the terrain, but not where the roads and buildings are. You can do everywhere around it. I'm kind of surprised we can lower the park that much. That's kind of scary. So you can do some pretty crazy stuff with it if you wanted to. And then you could fill this in with water from the water outlet, but you can't affect kind of where things already are. So try and do your smoothing beforehand, before you get too far down the road and decide you want to adjust things. That way you don't have to bulldoze stuff. So what do you think? Should we keep it? Should we leave our town like that? No, I guess we could change it. Let's see what, before we reload, let's see what we can do to Central Park with the lowering tool here. Man, you can absolutely distort it. Too much soil. Okay, let's take a walk through the park before we reload. Oh, people are walking through the park. Oh man, that is pretty distorted. That is a steep hill. This is definitely not handicap accessible. Although if I was this kid on this skateboard, I would totally be riding the board down here, not walking with it under my arm. It's super glitchy here. It keeps jumping. It wants to put me in third person mode, but it doesn't know how to rotate the camera around. Whoa, okay, so don't modify your paths too much. Because I'm pretty sure, let's see if we can get up here. If you keep jumping, we're fine. So yeah, that's what you can do with the terrain tools. Let's load. So we do not want to keep that. It would be fun to make a really crazy city sometime, maybe. Change the heights around. Disconnect little areas of town. But yeah, that's what happened since the last one. So sorry, I know some people don't like it when I do a lot of building off camera, but it was so tough to come up with some ways to kind of smooth out the traffic, and I'm still not there yet. You know, I've still got plenty of things that I would like to fix. I've got new problems cropping up over here. So it's kind of this constant reevaluation of what's happening in the city, because, you know, I had massive traffic problems over here, but traffic would get jammed up over here, which would mean it would be free by the time it got over here. Now that I've provided people with a new way on and off the highway, they're all like, oh, here, I'm gonna go this way now, and then that gets backed up. So you have to give them routes to get everywhere. We haven't done metro up here, so I might rethink the metro loop, which is a bit of a mess. Actually, this might be a great time to share a picture. Somebody sent me on Twitter. I am on Twitter very rarely, but you can follow me on there. I'll throw a link up on screen. But somebody sent me a metro suggestion that they had come up with, and man, is it better than my loops? I mean, I do like these loops. I gotta say, I gotta pat myself on the back. I think this is pretty creative how I did this. But the picture that I'll show you up on screen here was definitely a very cool metro route that kind of went through the town in some of the busiest spots. Kind of had a logical layout, like most actual urban metro would be laid out. The thing is like I've looked a lot at roads and cities. I haven't looked a lot at metros. So that's definitely something that I need to improve, and I'm trying to get better at. It's one of those things though, it's like, you know, I know a lot of people get advice and inspiration from my channel. Like, I am learning every day. Somebody just mentioned in the comments, if you look at, you know, Rockdale, or the town that I did the how-to series on before that, that was like 10 separate towns all mashed together. And I think I'm getting a feel for kind of how to do it better in some ways. I like every build that I do better than the last one. Especially, you know, when I get up into the 130,000s, like this is my favorite big city so far. It's massive, it's got character, it's got a little suburban area with some beaches. It used to have... Where is it? Where is it? We used to have an ice cube factory, now we have a dress factory. What is it? Fashion shop? RIP Ice Cube Factory. But this town has a ton of character, and I've had a lot of fun building it, kind of demonstrating different concepts along the way, and we're still working on it. We've got more industry demand, so hopefully this will continue to fill out with less abandoned buildings, but I'm gonna worry less about expansion at this point and more worry about just traffic flow, because we're in a pretty good spot. 130,000 people on console, I cannot complain. Traffic flows at 72%. The thing that I'm worried about right now is the 18% unemployment. I had that down to 6% a couple episodes ago. So I need to get people moved in closer to work. I got to give them the right jobs that they will care about and want to commute to. And right now, traffic is is one of those ever-present problems. You solve a traffic problem over here, and things are flowing nicely, but then now you're directing traffic elsewhere in your city, and then you start to get jams like this. So I've got to come up with some different solutions. Cloverleaf is not the best for moving people fast, so we might look at getting away from these built-in intersections. Maybe that would be a fun topic for one of the next episodes, is doing something like a partial cloverleaf, diverging diamond, some different ways to have less intersecting traffic, because the problem with the cloverleaf, and I live right off of a cloverleaf, is so you have, let's say you're coming this way, right? Why am I even doing it that way? Let's drive it. Let's drive it in a bus. Okay. No, let's drive it in a car so we can see a little better. So you're driving this way and you want to change highways. So I'm going to go right. And this is where the problem of the cloverleaf is as I'm merging onto the highway, you've got people that are getting off the highway right here. So you're trying to get on as they're trying to get off, and it creates this weird kind of loop right there. Now this is fine, right? You have people getting off before you're introducing traffic to the highway. The problem is on the other half of the cloverleaf, when those people who are just getting on are kind of cutting off the people that are getting off. So it's the middle section of the cloverleaf that is a problem. It's not a problem with kind of a trumpet style interchange, because here people are getting off before they're getting on, and over here they're getting off before they're getting on, but you're only servicing traffic to one direction off the highway, where the cloverleaf is covering both. So there's some different ways that we can tune and tweak this to minimize those collision points, which will speed up traffic. But we definitely need to figure that out, because this is just too slow coming through here. We'll come up with some creative solutions. I will continue to kind of work on the traffic. We've got little areas that we've got to fill out, so I'm going to keep populating this area here. Fill that out with demand as we need it. I'm going to let the industrial demand just kind of keep this space full so that these abandoned buildings will get rebuilt. If you demolish them, it makes people happy, but they should get rebuilt once there's enough demand. Once the other spots fill up, if a building gets abandoned, then they will rebuild on that property. We have much less problem with workers here. So I mean, there's 4 businesses complaining. It's not totally settled down. Did a 5th one just pop up as I said that, or did I count wrong? Either way, we'll let that industry sort of go. We will continue to tune and tweak a little bit down here, and then I'm going to revamp the metro up here to the north, and then rethink how all the loops are connected back together. Eventually, when Industries comes out, we will reload this city. I'll drop in some actual parks with the park life, and we could do a cargo airport over here. We could still do a train line now that we have an outside line, and maybe run that around the outside of the city. That would be kind of fun. Do some train service in and out. So there's a lot of things that we can still do. We haven't talked about blimps. We haven't talked about shipping or ferries, although there's not really anywhere we need to ferry people unless we want to move maybe 1 or 2 people in over here by the sewage pumps. They'd probably like that, right? We could do that. But that's a pretty good spot to break before I get distracted talking about too many other things. Let's call it quits there. I did want to talk about one future plan that I had, though, and that's for Let's Play Season 3. So if you've stayed tuned this far, obviously you are invested in the series, and I totally appreciate that and love and appreciate the support. So let me know if this is a good idea. So for Season 3, here's what I was thinking. Somebody mentioned that I should turn the disasters on. And this is what I was thinking, is you have the ability to turn random disasters on, and what I was thinking is cranking the frequency all the way up. So kind of having an Armageddon type season, and I was going to set this as kind of my goal. I still haven't unlocked the disaster monument, the Doomsday Vault, but I was thinking whether I do that piece or not, could play a season, see how long the city survives, and it would basically be a scenario that I would win if I can plant all the monuments on the map. Maybe not the Doomsday Monument. So if I can make the city survive and grow long enough with the random disasters turned all the way on, I win. And if the city collapses and goes to 0 population, then I lose and it's the end of the season. So that's what I was thinking. I thought it could have some good suspense. Definitely will be some cliffhangers in there as meteorites are raining down the city, and then you know, we can pause for a commercial break and pick things up the next day. But let me know what your thoughts are, if that's a good idea for the next series. Definitely some other ideas that I wanted to toss around, but I thought that one could be fun and suspenseful and still kind of building a city out, but seeing how bad cranking up those random disasters is going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be worse than I would normally like to do, but I think it might give some interesting challenge and suspense to this series. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you stayed tuned this long and you enjoyed the video, likes, comments, shares, always appreciated and greatly help the channel. If you're new here, subscribe and consider hitting that bell to get notifications, because it's very easy for small channels like mine to get lost in the shuffle. But until the next one, this is Move the Mouse, signing off.